I want to welcome on the stage our president, basically the reason this all started, Professor of Sociology at UT, Dr. Mark Regnerus, who will tell us something about what the family will look like in 2033.
Before I get to that particular question, I'm going to probably talk a little bit about how we got to this point. And I still will be under 20 minutes, so you'll have plenty of time for Q&A. For the past 10 years, the Austin Institute and its affiliated scholars have answered the same questions and bravely defended the eternal truths of human nature and family from its attackers. In some very real ways, the Institute and its affiliated scholars and research assistants do unheralded work, dirty work, not because it's corrupted, but because it soils us and makes us unwelcome in many circles. There is an academic pecking order for the study of marriage, family, and sexuality, and I guarantee you we are not near the top of the heap or even in the middle. That's okay. I am reminded of a quote from a Dominican writer that Luis Tellez introduced to me 10 and a half years ago, close to the beginning of my most difficult days. That writer said, "When the world does not like you, it takes its revenge on you. If it happens to like you, it takes its revenge still by corrupting you. Your only resource is to work far from the world, as indifferent to its judgments as you are ready to serve it. It is perhaps best if it rejects you and thus obliges you to fall back upon yourself, to deepen yourself." It just so happens that it's good advice. And then I began to study and analyze in a spirit of indifference to the world's judgments 10 years ago. It's paid off. The Institute's work has flourished. You have no idea how far this organization reaches. We consult and supply our friends around the world with data, analyses, and arguments. Some of them will ask us, "Hey, do you mind if we don't use your name on this?" And I never object. It doesn't even occur to me. Fine, no problem. It's about the work, not about the personalities. Federal district, appellate, Supreme Courts, we've lent our words and our voices to each of them on matters dear to our content. It started in 2014 with same-sex marriage. If I'm not mistaken, I followed Joe Price on the stand in Detroit, or he followed me. The defense of religious freedom around the same time. The defense of Title IX exemptions given to Christian colleges and universities to enable them to retain their sexual behavior codes. That's ongoing. The treatment of gender dysphoria for minors, also ongoing. We testify not because we're the best at it. We're not. It's because we're willing to do so, and most aren't. To be fair, my side loses more than it wins. And when you lose to the ACLU, they make sure you know it and you feel it. But that's fitting. From my earliest days in elementary school to the present, I've never felt at all like I was anything but someone on the outside looking in. State, federal, numerous governments, we've assisted each of those, as well as nonprofit entities seeking to shape their country's decisions on these important moral matters. We don't hate people. If you know me at all, you know that it's not really within me to hate. We simply love the good, and we're willing to sacrifice for it. In fact, most of our advisory work now is outside the United States because they're the ones asking us for help, and we give it gratis. I think what matters elsewhere is also pivotal to the continuity of Western tradition. While America has helped rescue Western civilization before, we have never done it alone. and it has happened altogether without us several times. And now America herself is sick, in need of medicine she presently refuses. Although we are non-sectarian, we offer our assistance, words, numbers, ears, advice, to religious entities ranging from the local parish, the local church, up to the highest level of decision makers. And they listen from the smallest to the largest. Some of these things we can talk about. Other work must remain discreet. All of it, however, is in service to our main motivations, to protect the good of family and marriage, to help each other understand and articulate the dignity of the human person in matters of sex and sexuality. Today, however, it feels more like we're trying to resurrect things, these first things, rather than simply protect them. I tend to think of what the Austin Institute does as akin to what the Army used to call pathfinders. Small number of people dropped into enemy territory to figure out how to make headway, ideally paving the way in advance of a larger force. Unfortunately, that larger force does not follow today, and indeed barely exists. So, what does the family, or what will the family look like in 2033? I would love to be optimistic and tell you that we are turning a corner. Can't do that yet. But I will mention just two things: a problem, and with it, a possibility. First, the problem. Marriage is graying. Average married couple in the United States is getting older, both at age of first marriage and in general due to fewer people marrying at all. As with almost anything related to marriage, it's not an individual problem that concerns me, it's the collective problem. It's not new, but we tend to underestimate the collective and the social effects here. For the majority of young Americans in their 20s, it's just not on the radar, marriage, that is. And for reasons I spelled out earlier in the book, Cheap Sex, our technologies are promoting this delay, which for some turns permanent. For every man who disengages from the quest for marriage, for whatever reasons, there is a woman who must too, whether she wishes to or not. Men are lonely, women are lonely, though men's loneliness tends to yield more self-destructiveness than women's. Speaking just 2 days ago in England, a Catholic bishop there stated, "The headlines do not seem to exaggerate when they speak not merely of a cataclysmic decline, but of marriage disappearing in Britain," citing the lowest number of couples entering marriage for almost 2 centuries. And that was back when the population was much, much smaller. Marriage will not disappear in America by 2033 or in England, but marriage as the taken for granted anchor of the adult life course has already faded. The social and the political privilege and esteem accorded to marriage has receded considerably, and in some locales is almost gone. We can discern it in the staggering figures from Pew Research earlier this year, where only 21% of parents said that it is extremely or very important to them that their children get married as adults. 21%. Compared with the 88% of parents who said the same thing about their children being financially independent and having jobs or careers that they enjoy. Once upon a time, parents would remind their young adult children about marriage. No more. Parental priorities in America have become material, not familial. On the flip side of this problem, however, is a possibility. It's that in minority subcultures, you can now clearly discern a pro-marriage mentality among 20-somethings. Marriage may have been in the water for their parents or grandparents, was for us, but no more. There are parishes now and congregations and colleges and small neighborhoods in which intergenerational goods like this are being regarded, not neglected, not taken for granted. It is, as I said, a minority. But this regard comes at a cost. Marrying at 23 or 24, 25, may mean sacrificing 2 incomes for one. Or as Joe said, a house for an apartment. Exchanging a 401k for just keeping some special K on the breakfast table. And for that, they will need our help, the generation above them. They are swimming upstream. Unlike us in that era, they know it. We know it. And hence, marriage will require more intergenerational support than it received in the past. So we 40-somethings and 50-somethings and 60-somethings have more than just one generation to assist, and that's okay. It's good for us. The moral value of independence is overrated. Interdependence is where genuine happiness lies. With that, I'm going to conclude. Plenty of time for Q&A, and offer my thanks first to our well-wishers and our supporters, especially to Luis Tellez, who's probably the vision for this thing came together first from him, to our staff, our interns, and most of all to my wife, who sacrificed so much to enable me to do this kind of work. I don't think it's what we thought would happen back in 1993, but marriage is malleable. It's flexible. It's that sort of thing. On a few occasions, it's been an unsightly building. Mostly my fault. But an unsightly building still provides shelter, and it can be improved. So we have, and we still do. So I thank her in particular, because without her, I would be adrift. Thank you.